7 languages. The airplane hummed quietly through the evening sky, its cabin bathed in the soft golden light of sunset. In seat 3A, Marcus Reynolds adjusted his reading glasses and tried to focus on the quarterly reports spread across his tray table. As the CEO of Reynolds International, a company that built bridges between cultures through technology, he was used to long flights. But tonight, something kept pulling his attention away from the numbers. It was the woman sitting 3 rows behind him. She sat in the middle seat of row 6, squeezed between 2 other passengers. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a worn sweater that had clearly seen many washings. On her lap sat a little boy, maybe 4 years old, with bright curious eyes and a gap-toothed smile. Marcus had first noticed her during boarding. She'd been struggling with a heavy carry-on bag, an overstuffed backpack, and a car seat, all while keeping track of her son. No one had offered to help. Marcus had almost gotten up from his first-class seat, but she'd managed on her own, settling into economy with quiet efficiency. Now, 2 hours into the flight, Marcus found himself listening to something extraordinary. The woman was speaking softly to her son in what sounded like Spanish. The little boy had been fussy, and she was telling him a story about a brave little rabbit. Her voice was gentle, musical. But then a passenger beside her asked a question in French, and she responded fluently, helping the elderly man with his seat belt. When the flight attendant came by speaking Portuguese, she translated for another passenger who seemed confused about the meal options. Marcus set down his pen and leaned back in his seat, listening more carefully. Over the next hour, he heard her speak what he counted as 7 different languages. Spanish with her son, French with the elderly gentleman, Portuguese with the confused passenger, Italian with a woman across the aisle who was traveling with her grandmother, German with a businessman who needed help with his phone settings, Mandarin with a young couple who seemed lost about their connecting flight, and English, of course, threading through all of it like a common melody. She wasn't showing off. She wasn't even being particularly loud. She was simply helping whoever needed it, switching between languages as naturally as most people switched between topics of conversation. The little boy had fallen asleep against her shoulder now, and she was reading a library book. Marcus could see the worn sticker on the spine. Every few minutes, someone else would ask for her help, and she would quietly assist them, never seeming annoyed or inconvenienced. Marcus found himself thinking about his own company. Reynolds International had spent millions trying to break down language barriers with apps and translation software. They had teams of programmers and linguists working around the clock. And here was one woman, probably earning a fraction of what his entry-level employees made, doing effortlessly what his company struggled to achieve with all its technology. When the plane began its descent, Marcus made a decision that would have surprised his board of directors. He stood up, walked back to row 6, and waited for a quiet moment. "Excuse me," he said softly, not wanting to wake the sleeping child. "I couldn't help but notice, you speak several languages." The woman looked up, and Marcus saw tired eyes filled with intelligence and kindness. "Oh, yes, sorry if I was being too loud. People just seem to need help, and, please, don't apologize. I'm Marcus Reynolds. I was wondering, what's your name?" "Sophia Martinez," she said, adjusting her son's position on her lap. "This is my son, Diego. It's nice to meet you both." "Sophia, what do you do for work?" A shadow crossed her face. "I clean offices at night. I'm between day jobs right now." She paused. "I have a degree in linguistics, but it's hard to find work that fits around Diego's schedule. Daycare is expensive, and I don't have family here to help." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Here was a woman with extraordinary skills, working night shifts cleaning buildings because she couldn't afford daycare. Meanwhile, his company was desperately searching for exactly the kind of talent she possessed. "Sophia," he said, "I know this might sound strange, but I'd like to offer you a job." She blinked in surprise. "I'm sorry." Marcus pulled out his business card. "I run a company called Reynolds International. We work on breaking down communication barriers between cultures. We've been looking for someone with your skills for months. Someone who doesn't just speak languages, but truly understands how to connect with people." Sophia stared at the card, then looked back up at him. "Are you serious?" "Completely." We offer excellent benefits, including on-site daycare. The salary would be, Marcus named a figure that made Sophia's eyes widen. And you'd be working with our cultural liaison team, helping businesses communicate across language barriers. Tears began to form in Sophia's eyes. I don't understand. Why me? Marcus glanced around the cabin, where several passengers were still looking toward Sophia gratefully for her earlier help. Because in 3 hours, I watched you do something remarkable. You didn't just translate words, you made people feel heard and understood. That's not something we can teach. That's something you either have or you don't. And you have it. The plane touched down gently, and passengers began stirring around them. Diego woke up and rubbed his eyes, looking up at Marcus with curiosity. Mama, who's the man? He asked in Spanish. Sophia wiped her eyes and smoothed her son's hair. This is Mr. Reynolds, Diego. I think he might be about to change our lives. Marcus smiled. Only if you want me to. The offer stands, no pressure. But I hope you'll consider it. As they waited for the plane to reach the gate, Sophia held Marcus's business card like it was made of gold. When would you need an answer? Take your time, Marcus said. But Sophia, I have a feeling you're going to do amazing things. 6 months later, Marcus was walking through the halls of Reynolds International when he heard familiar laughter coming from the daycare center. Through the window, he could see Diego playing happily with other children while Sophia worked just down the hall. She had become the head of their new cultural bridge program, and under her leadership, the company had expanded into 12 new countries. More importantly, she had brought something to the office that all of Marcus's technology couldn't replicate, the human touch. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are sitting right in front of us, Marcus thought. We just have to be paying attention. That evening, as Marcus prepared for another flight, he made sure to book a seat in the middle of the plane. You never know, he mused, who you might meet in row 6.